Hey guys, so I'm gonna jump right into paragraph 5. Watchtower always wants to highlight sacrifices that Jehovah's Witnesses make to preach more, and I wouldn't have a problem with that if it was for serving God, if it was for serving Jesus Christ, the real Christ. But giving up everything for false prophets is not the flex that you think it is. You're not giving it up for Jehovah. You're giving it up for the organization. And that same organization is going to drop you like a hot potato when you don't believe in what they say is true anymore. Leave you homeless, leave you in the streets to die, and call you an apostate and shun you. That last sentence there in paragraph 5, it says they feel satisfied and happy about their decisions. Do they really? The only reason why Jehovah's Witnesses think that they're satisfied and happy is because they are indoctrinated to believe that. They do not have their own thoughts and opinions. Watchtower is telling you how to feel. They say that if you do X, Y, and Z, if you preach more, if you read the Bible more, then you would be happy. But that's not always the case. In paragraph 6, the only thing that I would disagree a little bit with is the sentence where it says Jehovah does not require us to make these sacrifices, nor are the things given up wrong in themselves. Half of that is true. But in my perspective, I wish that they would have really gone into the importance of the sacrifices making to serve God for real, not these superficial sacrifices like jobs and marriage and stuff like that, because that's the narrative that they want to give. They want people to postpone these life events so that they can worship God, and that shouldn't be the case. You should be able to do both. You should be able to get married, have children, raise your children, and be Christian at the same time. You don't need to postpone these things to be Christian. But that's the Jehovah's Witness narrative. Mark 8:34, you are willing to die following Christ. You are surrendering yourself, your life, your fleshly desires, everything that the Bible talks about. Those are the fundamental Christian values that I believe in. Yeah, of course. But this paragraph is just so underwhelming. Why not talk about the real sacrifices that we have to make to be Christian, to follow Christ? It's not easy. It's a very hard thing to do in the modern era where degeneracy is rampant, especially in America. We do not have a culture in America that is mostly Christian anymore, at least not outwardly. So to be a Christian nowadays is even harder than it ever was. And I wish that paragraph 6 would have gotten more into that, because these scriptures and this whole topic would have been so much more appropriate to describe how to worship Christ. Paragraph 7 is just hilarious. Once again, they want to be in denial about standing out. And this whole sentence, this whole scripture about the Nazirites vowing not to cut their hair, why wasn't this scripture used before to keep brothers with the beards and the long hair? This would have been a great way to prove that there was nothing wrong with the hair situation for brothers. But they don't really care about standing out physically. They want you to stand out verbally. They always want you to announce yourself that you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses. They always want you to excuse yourself out of a room when something that is nationalistic is coming on, which is what paragraph 8 describes with the 10-year-old boy. Major issue that I have with a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses, because they are very anti-nationalistic. Being proud of your country or being patriotic shouldn't be frowned upon. We should be proud of where we come from. So I got curious and I Googled what is the opposite of being an anti-nationalist. I'm not going to get too political, but these are some of the characteristics that Jehovah's Witnesses portray when they have publications talking about patriotism in a negative light. They want this one world government type of utopia where everybody's happy. You will own nothing and be happy. Does that sound familiar? You wouldn't even know about this because we are not politically inclined and we are not educated politically to have these opinions and to see a red flag when we hear it or when we read it. As a Jehovah's Witness, you will never read the Communist Manifesto. You would never learn about governments and politics and things like this. So you wouldn't even know that this whole anti-nationalists or anti-patriotic stand is a red flag. They want to put themselves as the authoritarian figure, just like an authoritarian government would do. They don't want any other religion except their own. They wouldn't want any other kind of democracy because they put themselves the dictator of Jehovah's Witnesses. They are indoctrinating you to hate your country or to not be proud from where you come from and to never take up the identity of where you come from. For example, you live in America, but you don't feel American. You don't have the pride that comes with being an American. You don't read the Constitution and learn about your Bill of Rights, because if you really did learn about it and implement it in your life, you would notice how much the Jehovah's Witnesses violate our basic Bill of Rights in America. Freedom of speech and freedom of religion. They violate those basic human rights. And paragraph 11, if you guessed it, that I would have the most problems with, you guessed correctly, because from a Christian standpoint, their first sentence right there, as Christians. And so they say, we never put the decisions of our family members ahead of what Jehovah requires of us. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. The context of Matthew chapter 10, verses 35 to 37. It's not about putting desires of your family ahead of Jehovah. They mean loyalty to the organization. The true context of that scripture is what I have written down here, and this is from the chat GPT. Spiritual allegiance over family ties, the cost of discipleship, authentic discipleship. Jesus wanted his disciples to understand the cost of following him. It wasn't about attending gatherings, aka meetings, or listening to his teachings. It requires a radical commitment, because Matthew 10 kind of describes, following Jesus was going to cause divisions between families. And in verse 37, he says, whoever has greater affection for their family is not worthy of him. Because like I said, it's very hard to be Christian. And sometimes we have to go against the crowd, the narrative, to follow Jesus. It's a very narrow path. And that's what that scripture means. It's not about putting the desires of our family first. It's about whoever is hindering you into serving Jesus Christ fully, then you really need to distance yourself from them and put Jesus Christ above family ties. That clashes with the organization. In my own experience, what I'm going through right now, my mother, who is a Jehovah's Witness, is shunning me just because I went to another church. I told her I never left Jehovah and I never left believing in God. I'm just no longer a Jehovah's Witness anymore. But I am very much still Christian. And they have a problem with that. You cannot be Christian and not follow the governing body. You cannot be Christian and not go to the Kingdom Hall. That's problematic, because that's not what Jesus was talking about. Jesus was talking about, if you do follow him, it may cause divisions because other people in your family will not choose to serve him. And so for you to do that, you are going to have to leave and go your own way and pick up your cross and follow Christ. If Jehovah's Witnesses really implemented what Jesus meant, if you are still a Christian and you have a family member that is a Jehovah's Witness, there shouldn't be an issue with communication. Because if you are really Christian, then you wouldn't have a problem associating with other Christians, no matter what denomination they are in. And my last thoughts are for paragraph 12. If you saw that video, I guess this is proof that Watchtower does get their stories from real people and maybe do change their names. I don't know. But I'm glad that they put the video, because I'm like, okay, I could actually trust that this story is somewhat accurate because the people themselves are giving their story. I'm all for freedom of religion. I'm American, but I'm also more for raising awareness of the inconsistencies that Jehovah's Witnesses have. And if the organization is discouraging their own members into doing research about their history, then that's a problem. That's a red flag. And that's why I consider them a cult, because you can't question them. And you should be able to question them. If you want to be a witness, be a witness. But at least have 100% knowledge of what you're really getting into and the consequences of leaving. And for the finale, everybody, I have rewritten the lyrics of the concluding song entitled Ever Loyal. So I'm going to sing for you guys a little jingle. Ever loyal to the org, their advice will always fail us, and their counsel destroys lives. They're unloyal We can't trust them. From their side, we need to stray. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that because I certainly did. And if you want to check my channel out, search my name, Ruby Quinn, under the handle New Yorker Rican. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Thanks so much.